lost in the spiritual consciousness, he develops fearlessness to death. So death can come any time. Indeed, it will. So King Parikshit had been trained like that. So then when the time came, he set his son on the throne as the king and he walked away. He shed his royal robes. He wore the ordinary dress of a mendicant and went to the banks of the Ganges river. And word spread like wildfire through Facebook and WhatsApp and emails, and there was word everywhere. King Parikshit leaves home to go to meditate on the banks of the Ganga awaiting his death. And somebody says, OMG. And somebody, so also flying thick everywhere, all sorts of comments. And people came in from everywhere trying to witness this historic occasion, and they knew something special was going to happen. Because King Parikshit was not an ordinary king, not an ordinary human. He was a very spiritually evolved person. So he went there, and there were many sages who had already gathered there, knowing in advance that the king was about to come. And they welcomed him, and King Parikshit, without further ado, asked them the question, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? What should he hear about? What should he think about? What should he speak about? What should he worship, if at all? So two very important questions. And many of the sages there began giving answers according to their understanding, and many of them were contradictory answers. And he wasn't satisfied with those answers. And just at that time came a 16-year-old lad. But he wasn't just a lad. Biologically, he was a lad. But actually, he was one of the most spiritually advanced people. His name was Shukadev Goswami. He was a son of another great sage called Vyasadeva, who was a writer of the scriptures, the Vedic scriptures. As soon as Shukadev entered the arena, everybody automatically stood up in respect, understanding that he was self-realized. Just by looking at him, they could see that. And even though there were many others who were far senior to him in age, but they all actually deferred to him and made him sit on the seat that was meant for the teacher. And he sat, and Parikshit also offered his respects to him and asked him that question, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? What should he hear about, think about, speak about, and worship? And immediately, Shukadev Goswami replied, the duty of a person who is about to die is to try to remember that all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the source of everything and everyone, that one absolute truth, that one supreme entity from whom everything emanates. And one should meditate on him, one should hear about him, one should chant about him. And that should be the primary duty of a person who is about to leave this world. And then the whole scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, with its 18,000 verses, is an elaboration of this answer. Can you imagine? This one answer takes up and then goes on increasing elaborately, and then there are further questions, further answers, and it goes on. In the famous book Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that the state of consciousness we have at the point of death determines our next life, as I briefly mentioned earlier. So if we think of Lord Krishna, he says, if you think of me, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, you will come back to me. There is a world beyond this material world. This world of matter that we stay in is temporary. There is a cycle of creation, sustenance, and destruction that this world goes through. As everything else in this world is temporary, The world itself is temporary. Hare Krishna, Kripamaya Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So this whole world itself is temporary. It's created, it's maintained, and it will be destroyed. It again will be created, maintained, and destroyed. And this cycle goes on eternally. And we, the living entities, have been caught, trapped in this cycle of birth and death from time immemorial, and it seems interminably into the future, unless we become Krishna conscious. And that is the whole essence of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita bring us to the point of learning to love Krishna, rise beyond our material conceptions of life, to rise beyond bodily considerations of life, to give up all sorts of speculations and take to real spiritual life, which means to reconnect the soul to Krishna, our original super soul, in love. And then when we have cultivated this kind of Krishna consciousness throughout life, then we will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death, whenever that death may come. So then, when there's 24 hours given to us to die, then what should we do? Parikshit had 7 days. If we have 1 day left to live, immediately we should call the devotees, please chant, let's have some kirtan, please recite Srimad Bhagavatam, let me absorb my mind in Krishna consciousness so that I can leave this world gloriously. This is a glorious departure. Devotees are not afraid of death, as I mentioned, because for devotees, death is merely a passageway or a doorway into a glorious, wondrous future in the spiritual world, where there is life of eternity, knowledge, and full bliss in the company of Lord Krishna. But for those who are not so evolved in their consciousness, death is fearsome. Death is the ultimate defeat. Death is the ultimate destruction. Death is the ultimate cause of fear. But for a devotee, the devotee is fearless. Let death come anytime, like King Parikshit. So whether it's 24 hours, whether it's 1 hour, 1 minute, 7 days, it doesn't matter. Actually, according to the Bhagavad Gita, we all have received our notice of death. Do you know when? At the time of birth. So Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, for one who is born, death is certain. For one who dies, birth is certain. So the fact that we were born means that the notice has been delivered, signed, sealed, delivered. We are born, and here you are. You're also going to die. So then, well, all right, I have to die, so might as well prepare for it. So Krishna consciousness, living our life in Krishna consciousness, is the perfect way to prepare for death, to have a fearless, glorious, devotional passing away from this world and pass away into higher spiritual realms and be with Krishna eternally. Thank you very much. I think I've done my half an hour. Any disagreements? Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
Only one. I hope you can understand me because I am from Spain.
No problem.
Bueno, my question is very important for me. If arrive for me the time for I must love my body, if I think in Krishna, only in Krishna, but in my past years or my past, I commit so many mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna can forgive me.
Of course. Your question is that as we live, we perform many activities and perhaps we perform some mistakes. So will Krishna forgive at the time when we are about to leave this world? If we have devoted our life to Krishna for His pleasure, if we have become conscious of Krishna with love, then nothing else matters. Then the responsibility rests with Krishna. He will lift us up and take us to the spiritual world. So a devotee therefore has nothing to fear. Krishna promises this again and again in the Bhagavad Gita. So death is not something that we should fear at all, at least theoretically. And practically it will become a reality the more we develop faith and devotion. Any other questions or comments? So we're all going to prepare by trying to be Krishna conscious. Doesn't matter when death comes. It will come. So that's enough for us. And now we prepare for a life where there is no more death in the spiritual world. No taxes, no NHS, no M25. Just a happy world with Krishna. How about that? A life without M25? What do you think? Good proposal? Okay, I'd like to thank all of you for having taken a time out to come for this session. I hope it did provide some food for thought. And I also would like to thank the devotees who have organized this program. And I do hope and pray that such programs will continue and you will keep coming here and grow in your Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
All the way from India just for the talk. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you want to take this off, Mataji? Balaram, if you do this way.